So we start with this very important topic of reapportionment. So reapportionment is the part of the process of absorbing the overheads. So in order to explain reapportionment, let me go back to the previous slide which we were discussing. So we said that this is the process of overhead absorption, where you had this total production cost, you divide them into direct cost and indirect cost, which are overheads. And then we said that these indirect cost overheads, first you do in stage one, you do allocate and apportion. So you divide your total overheads. Let's suppose your total overheads are 5,000. So you say, okay, out of this 5,000, 2,000 goes to production department one, 2,000 goes to production department two, and 1,000 it goes to service department. So remember that within within your factory, you have production departments like cutting or stitching, but you also have some service departments. So service departments are those departments which are not producing the goods, rather they are providing service to these production department. For example, what could be service department in a factory? It could be your cafeteria. It could be where your people, they go and they, eat their lunch. Then you have warehouse, which is also not a production department, but it is a service department because it provides service to the production department. And then you have maybe repair and maintenance, the maintenance department of, which maintains the equipment. So service department, they exist within the production facility. So my production overheads are 2,000, 5,000. I divide them 2,000, 2,000, and 1,000. Now, there is a trick. Remember that all the cost which we incur in a business, we ultimately have to recover those costs from our customers. Okay. You have to take the cost from your customer. You have to recover it from the customer. And how do you recover it? You don't go to your customer and and say that, give me $1,000, I have to pay my rent, or give me $5,000, I have to pay my something else. No. The only way to recover money from customer is to add that cost into the cost of the product. So the cost which you incur, you add it into the cost of unit. And when the customer pays for the product, it actually is paying your cost. So this service department, its cost is 1,000, but service department does not produce anything, and they are not making any product which they are going to sell to the customer, and therefore they cannot recover their cost. They are incurring the costs, but they cannot recover the cost because they don't produce anything. Number one. And number two, the service department itself, we do not need it. Why do we have service department? Because to provide service to the production department, because production people are working. If it is service department, let's call it as canteen, where people, they come and eat food. So if there is no work, let's suppose the factory is closed, if there are no production workers, nobody is going to eat food in the canteen. Canteen, it only works to provide service to the people working in this production department. So it means that the service department itself is not needed. It is actually working to support production one and production two. And therefore, what we need to do, this $1,000, we have to transfer back it to the production department one or two. And this is called reapportionment. Okay. So apportionment was when you had your total 5,000 overhead, and you divide this 5,000 into three pieces. You say 2,000 goes to production one, 2,000 goes to production two, and 1,000 goes to the service department. This is called apportionment. You are apportioning the overheads between different departments. But then the service department, this cost, it must go back to these two. We share it back, and this is called reapportionment. So reapportionment is the process where the service department costs are charged to the production department based on some method, based on some logic, so that this 1,000 will become zero. This 1,000, which appears here, it will become zero. I would say it minus 1,000, so I make it zero. And probably I will charge 500 to this one and 500 to this one. or maybe 600, 400, whatever, but it should become zero. And that 1000 should ultimately be charged to the production department. This is the concept of reapportionment. Okay. So now let's come to the relevant slide. We say that reapportionment, it is to reapportion service cost centers overheads to the production cost centers. And there are three methods. Okay. There are three methods. The first one is called direct method, which is very simple, very easy. The second one is called step method, which is slightly difficult, but not really very difficult. And the last one is called reciprocal method, which could become complex. And reciprocal method we are not going to discuss as part of this session. So we will keep our discussion limited to only two methods, which is called direct method and step method. In direct method, we say that inter-service department work is ignored. Inter-service department work is ignored. So what does that mean? It means that if you have two service department, let's suppose production one you have, production two you have, service one you have, service two you have. And let me give them names so that you can create a picture in your mind. This is your canteen and this is your warehouse. So we just discussed that canteen is actually working for production department 2 and production department 1, and therefore whatever is the cost of canteen, we have to transfer it to these two production. This is what we just discussed. But inter-service department work, what does that mean? It means that sometimes these service departments, they actually not only provide service to the production department, they actually provide service to another service department as well. For example, the people who work in production, they come to the canteen and they eat food. People who work in production too, they also come to the canteen to eat food. But we have warehouse people as well. In warehouse, there are also 5 people working. Where do they go and eat food? I mean, do you think that they don't get food? They also get food. So they come to canteen department. So it means that canteen is serving not only to production, but canteen, which is a service department, is also providing service to warehouse. So we call it inter-service department cost. So one service department is providing service to another service department. Canteen is also providing service to the warehouse. Okay, that makes sense. But then, does this warehouse also provide some service to canteen? So canteen is providing service to warehouse because warehouse people, they come and eat food. But does warehouse department provide some service to canteen? Yes, that is also possible because canteen people, they have to store their, food items. They have to store their goods in large quantities. They don't buy every day. They probably buy on weekly basis, and there are 500 people working. So it's a huge quantity of food items. Where do they store them? So they probably store their goods in the warehouse. So now we say that the canteen is providing service to the warehouse and the warehouse is also providing service to the canteen. So both service departments, they provide service to each other as well. I mean, they are providing service to the production, but they also providing service to each other. Okay, so that makes sense now. Now, how to account for this work which they provide to each other? So we say that when we are using, if we are using the direct method, we will assume that service department, they don't provide service to each other. Actually, they do, but we will just ignore them. We will just ignore it. They do provide service to each other, but we said they will not charge to each other because ultimately they have to charge only the production department, and that makes life very easy. It makes working very simple. The second method, we say that some inter-service department work is recognized, which means that maybe the canteen is providing service to the warehouse, but the warehouse is not providing any service to canteen because canteen says, I will store my food items myself, so I don't need your service. I have enough space, I can put my goods with me. So although warehouse people, they go to canteen and they eat food, but the canteen is not taking any services from warehouse. So it means that one service department is providing service to the other, but the other one is not providing. Okay. This is we called step method. You remember the third one, which I said that I'm not going to discuss as part of this session, reciprocal method. In reciprocal, actually both provide service to each other. So in reciprocal method, we assume that canteen serves warehouse, warehouse in return serves the canteen. So they both serve each other. We are not going to discuss that. Our only concern is direct method and step method. In direct method, they don't serve each other. In step method, one department serves and the other one does not. Now let's see how do we do that. So we will create some hypothetical example. I just assumed some numbers for the sake of this session. And we first are going to discuss the direct method where service departments do not provide service to each other. And so we have two production departments. One is mixing, one is stirring. And we have got two service departments. One is stores, which is warehouse, and another one is called canteen. So you've got two production departments, two service departments. You have overheads, your total overheads. You divide your total overheads between these four departments. So you already have done apportionment. So this was the part of apportionment. When you had total overheads, let me just see, 108 to 100 plus 39,400 plus 90,800 plus 23,600. I'm sorry, 23,600 plus, I'm sorry, 9,800. I just want to make sure that we get the numbers. So let's suppose that my total overheads were 262,000. It just assumed a number, and somehow using some method, using some proportion, percentages, ratios, we actually have already divided this 262. This was my total overhead. Okay. This was my total production overhead, 262,000 for the factory, entire factory. And then based on some percentage, like 40% here, 30% here, 10% there, 20% there, we just calculated that the overhead which belongs to each of these departments is this one. Apportionment is done. But we know that service department, we don't want to keep any cost here, because if the cost remains here, it cannot be recovered from the customer. What we need to do, the cost of this service department, we want to transfer this cost to these two production departments, and we want to make the cost zero here. Now, because I'm using the direct method, so it means that service departments, we are not going to provide service to each other. So all of this cost should be split between these two. And similarly, this 23 will also be divided between these two. Okay. So this will become zero, this will become zero, and they will get rid of their cost, because store says, oh, I don't want to take any cost, I'm working for production. And canteen says, I also don't want to take any cost, I'm working for the production. So please charge my cost to the production department. So for this purpose, you need to have, let's suppose you always split these overheads based on some logic. If I talk about canteen spent 23,600. Okay. So what does canteen do? It provides food to the people who work in the production department. So should I split this cost into two parts? Let's call it, 11,800 here and 11,800 here, equal cost. The answer is no, you should not be doing it like that. Canteen overhead, you should be splitting based on the number of people who work, because food means people. The more people they work, the more food they should get. So if mixing department has 100 people working there and stirring has only 50 people working here, so it means that the mixing department should be getting the cost twice than the stirring department. So this 23,600, I will divide it by 2. I'm just giving you an example, and I multiply it with, divide with 3, multiply by 2. That should go to the mixing. So number of people should be the basis for this division. Okay. One logic I'm just giving you. But let's see what they are giving in this question. They say that the cost which should be divided between stores department cost, store. So it's not canteen. First, they are telling me store. Store cost should be divided with the ratio of 50 to 30. between mixing and stirring. So 50-30 means the total, it makes 80. So what mixing is 50, stirring should take 30. So I should say that 23,600 should be divided by 80 and multiplied by 50. And you can say divided by 8 multiplied by 5, you can ignore zeros. So this cost should come here. And then you should say 23,600 is the cost. Oh, I'm sorry, this is stores. I'm sorry, this is stores. So if it is stores, it should be 90,800 divided by 8 multiplied by 5, and this comes to the mixing, and 90,800 divided by 8 multiplied by 3, because that is 3, okay? And that should come to here. This is how you divide it based on proportion. So they gave us ratio 50-30, and this 90,800 will be divided between these two departments based on 5/8 and 3/8. So you always need to make a total. So what the total number is 50 plus 30, or you can call it 5 plus 3, 8. So out of 8 portions, 5 portions are here, and out of 8 portions, 3 portions are here. So 5/8 comes here, 3/8 of this 90 comes here, okay? Then you have got this canteen. So canteen apportionment, reapportionment ratio is 45-40. So 45-40, it means that the mixing department should take 23,600 multiplied by 45 plus 40 makes me 85. So I would say 45 divided by 85. And for stirring, again, I will say 23,600 multiplied by 40 over 85, okay? 40 by 85, 45 by 85. 85 is the sum total. And then when we see this thing, so canteen cost of 23,600 divided between the two departments as this one. So stores become 0, canteen becomes 0, and the overhead which was for store and canteen, they were transferred to the two production department. Now, if you remember in the very beginning, we calculated the sum total of these four. That was 262,000, if I'm not mistaken. And when you will make a total of these two, it will also be 262,000. So your total overhead, which was before 262, you divided it between these four departments, and then this cost you further took back here. And now the total overhead will remain same. It is just the allocation. It was 262, it remains 262, but now it is divided between the two departments and not the four. This is direct method. It was relatively easy. The other one is called step method, which again is easy. Step method will assume that one of the service department will charge cost to the other, like canteen will transfer cost to stores, but stores will not transfer back to canteen. So one will give, another will not. So we take the same data, mixing, stirring, service, stores and canteen, and the same numbers, which is 262,000 of total, 108, 39, 90, and 23. And then we say, what is the ratio? So reapportionment ratio of stores department. So this is stores, and their reapportionment ratio is 50-30-20, which means 50% of this should come here, 30% of this should go there, and 20% should go there. Very simple. So it will take like 5/10. I mean 5, 3, 8, and 2, 10. 5/10 will come here, which is half. It will take 3/10 of this 9,800, and this will take 2/10 of 9,800. So 9,800 multiplied by 2/10 should come here. 9,800 multiplied by 3/10 should go there. Very simple, basic mathematics, okay? So 9,800 is divided between these three departments. So this becomes 0. Now store becomes 0. Now there is one point you need to remember. Store becomes 0. But canteen cost will increase because canteen had its own cost of 23,600, but then some cost from the store also come here. So the total cost of the canteen department now is 41,760. So canteen cost from 23,600, it became 41 because it took some cost from the stores department. And remember, we are doing step method. So in step method, this cost was transferred here, we agreed, but canteen will not give back here. Canteen will only divide this one between the other two departments. Let's see this one. So we say that reapportionment of maintenance cost, it's not maintenance, it's canteen. That should be done based 4540. So this 41,600, nothing comes here. 45% of this should come here, and 40% of that, not it's 45%, it is actually 45 by, I'm sorry, 45 by 85 should come here, and 40 by 85 should go there. That's the proportionate method here. So let's do that. 41,760. It will be divided between these two based on the ratio like 45 by 85, 40 by 85. Now, if you see, the sum total is different. Now, this method will give you, again, the total overhead will remain 262. The total of, when you will make a sum total of these number, it will become 262. Like this is total 262. So total overheads are not changing, but the amount in the individual department is changing. Now, if you see, it is 175,000 based on step method. Okay. So if I go back and see the direct method, it was not 175. In direct method, it was 177. See, 177 in the direct method. And in indirect, in step method, you had it instead of 177, you have it as 175. So the numbers will change. So this is called reapportionment. Once you do reapportionment, then finally you will absorb overheads. So absorption of overheads will be the next step. So then you will say, okay, these total overheads for the mixing department is this one. How much work do they do? And then you divide with the quantity of work and you find out your overhead for that particular unit of output or whatever. So that is all for reapportionment.